Alright, legends, welcome along to Here's Rodder's Reviews. We're getting into Transformers Season 3 from the original 80s run of the Transformers. This is episode 4, Five Faces of Darkness, part 4. This is a long opening story to this here. Quintessons are bin decks, and we finally figure out in this episode who they are, where they came from, what their motivations are, and another little change to the origin that we knew previously to the Transformers in seasons 1 and 2. We pick up directly after the events of the last episode, where the Autobots are trapped in this little planet, asteroid, weird little goo-like planet. They're all trapped in this goo, which is essentially gathering up garbage. If you know Transformers the movie, you know exactly what's going on with this whole thing, and we do get that answer in this episode as well. So basically, they're trapped. The Quintessons have hijacked the Decepticon army and set off to kill Rodimus Prime and the Autobots here in their attempt to eventually go after Cybertron. The Decepticons, fooled into doing this, don't realise that Galvatron is alive, and he turns up at the beginning of this episode and inadvertently saves the Autobots by attacking the Decepticon army himself, because the way he sees it is they're all renegades in his eyes. They're off of these Quintesson creatures and doing something that he doesn't want them to do. This is my army, so I'm going to take my anger out on you. Galvatron in this opening story is insanely strong. Like, they're really pushing the fact that Galvatron, even though he's a reformatted version of Megatron, is stronger, and you see the destructive power in Galvatron in this episode and the episodes prior to it. But yeah, he eventually, after a little bit of Galvatron sweet talk, the Decepticons repledge their allegiance to him, and he goes after these Quintessons that have hijacked his army. I'm going to have to introduce myself to them. He single-handedly attacks their ship. He gets in there, starts threatening them. They get him talked around by they're devious. They realise that he's going to be a completely different kettle of fish to the other Decepticons. Are going to have to deal with him very strategically. So they bit him in with the idea of the Decepticon matrix of leadership, which is complete nonsense, doesn't exist, and he falls for it and essentially winds up leading the Decepticon army himself in an attack on Cybertron. So that's where the episode closes out. Everything else that's going on in here, we have Wheelie and Blur trapped in one of the moons of Titan, I want to say. Could be very far off in that. They've got the transformation cog for Metroplex / Autobot City, and they're rescued by Marissa Fairborn, who is like the Transformers version of Buzz Lightyear, who comes to the rescue of them, but her ship manages to get destroyed in her rescue attempt, so they're stranded on that planet. So I can't recall if they even get off it in this episode. I don't think they do. It's been a couple of days since I watched it. I really should have went in with fresh eyes before I did this review. The Autobots get rescued from the goo planet by Wreck-Gar and the Junkions, who we met in Transformers the movie. Obviously this thing's gathering junk, it's for the Junkions. So they manage to get them out and away from Galvatron. On the planet Junk, they reassemble Springer in short form, bring him back. He gets sucked through one of their machines in a prior episode, got completely destroyed, and within a few moments, they've got him rebuilt, reactivated. Off he goes like nothing happened. And you see this sort of stuff all the time. That's one of the big criticisms I had with Transformers the movie and this episode, because you're always thinking to yourself, if they can do that in Transformers the movie to Ultra Magnus, who gets blown to bits, Springer in this episode who gets tore to pieces in this vacuum machine in the planet Goo, why the heck don't they just bring the body of Optimus Prime to these guys and get them to give him get the jump leads on him, get him up and going again? Because speaking for myself personally, back in the day, we weren't happy with the decision to take Optimus Prime out of the fray when it comes to the Transformers. One of the best characters we all loved in that series. Having said that, you do get a little cameo from Optimus Prime in this episode. Rodimus is trying to figure out who these Quintessons are, how they know so much about the Autobots and Cybertron and all that sort of thing. He does something completely stupid, and in Springer's words in the episode, he's not as stupid as he looks. Springer says you can get yourself blasted, you're nearly killed again, and you can re-enter the Matrix and figure out what you want to find out. So when he's on his own, when Rodimus Prime's on his own, he actually opens up his chest compartment where the Matrix is at and short circuits himself, knocks himself out, and he does actually end up going into the Matrix. And you see all these previous faces of Autobot leaders over the years. They're giving them the story of who the Quintessons were, or who the Quintessons are, their origins and the origins of the Transformers. And essentially, the Quintessons are the creatures that created both the Autobots and the Decepticons. Cybertron originally started out as a factory, and the Quintessons were making robots. There was two different variations. There was consumer goods, was I think the way they put it, which would have been the Autobots, and then there was like the military robots that were eventually became the Decepticons. So over the years, the robots at the beginning the robots were only programmed with a basic kind of personality circuit so that they could do things and take care of the planet and like build more robots for the Quintessons. But over the years, they started to become self-aware. They went all Skynet on the Quintessons. Eventually, the Quintessons started getting lazy, not doing their stuff, making the robots do everything. And if there's any robots that refused to do what they were told, they were simply destroyed and just rebuilt, put into the system again, built into a new robot, and off it would go. But over the years, the Quintessons started using the military robots in gladiatorial tournaments, and they slowly started to turn on the Quintessons, and eventually all the robots, both the consumer goods and I've lost the word, the military robots banded together and drove the Quintessons off Cybertron. So hundreds of years has passed, and the robots wound up working together, living in peace, and eventually the consumer goods started calling themselves Autobots, and the military started calling themselves Decepticons, and eventually the wars started, and the Autobots wound up figuring out the art of transformation and ruled for hundreds of years. And then the Decepticons managed to figure out this technology as well, and then transformation became part of both sides. The Transformers were eventually born, and then one fateful night, Megatron was created. A little bit of a break from the continuity of the show, which is never a big deal in the Transformers, because it was just a cartoon show that was designed to advertise toys. But in this episode, you see Megatron basically at the beginning of his existence, been created by the Constructicons. And you seen in season 1 of the Transformers, the Constructicons were only built whenever the Autobots eventually got there. So there's a continuity mistake in this one as well. But we can forgive that. The only thing we can't forgive is the loss of Optimus Prime. So throughout this whole trip in the Matrix, there's different voices or different leaders telling what the story is, who the Quintessons were, and what built the Autobots and the Decepticons. And eventually you get Optimus Prime there telling Rodimus that, these guys have been waiting for thousands and thousands of years for the right time to attack Cybertron. So at the end of the episode, we'll come up towards the end of the episode, Rodimus orders the Autobots to return to Cybertron. Something's going to go on here. So as far as the Decepticons go, their plan at the end of this episode is to attack on two fronts. The Quintessons want Cybertron back. The Decepticons don't know this. They'll use the Decepticons to get Cybertron, and then they'll turn on the Decepticons and destroy them. So they want to take the Autobots out and then take the Decepticons out. But the thing that has been holding them back this length of time is the human factor. They don't know. They can't predict anything the humans are going to do. So they find them to be a threat towards them. Galvatron has laughed that off. He says they're complete weaklings. So the deal is they're going to attack on two fronts. They're going to attack Autobot City on Earth and Cybertron at the same time. And at the end of the episode, you see Trypticon getting activated and starting his assault. Essentially, he activates in this city that the Decepticons have been working on in secret, building Trypticon into it. He transforms. He's ready to attack Metroplex at the end of the episode. And in the final moments, you see the Decepticons pouring out of the Quintesson ship and starting their assault on Cybertron. So big story, and this opening story of 5 episodes altogether for 5 Faces of Darkness. And this, in all fairness, the season 3 of the Transformers has been a long time since I actually watched it properly. I remember seeing bits and pieces of it whenever I was a kid. Wasn't big into it as a child, I have to say, even as a fan of the Transformers. If you lived through that period and got your heart absolutely broke whenever Optimus Prime was killed off in the movie, it kind of took the motivation out of a lot of us to even continue on watching the show. And for a lot of us, even the toys that came out with this series, and even shows after it, just the appeal of season 1 and 2 of the Transformers was the toys that were coming out were actual vehicles and planes and stuff that you would know from real life, but been set in the future. Although 2005, where this series is set well in the past at this point, but in the time this was brought out, which was 86 or so, about that time, there were these Transformers that were just things that you didn't recognise from the real world, didn't have the same feel as that original run of toys. So yeah, you have that. But I've watched, obviously I've got the DVD box set of this. I have watched this once or twice since it's been bought, but no real clear memory of it at this point. So I'm having a good time with it, with this series of reviews here, just checking it all out again. Great series of Transformers. It's one I adored from childhood, and yeah, having a great time with it. I think that's going to do it for this episode. I don't think I missed anything out in that, other than I did cover the Wheelie and Blur situation, and I do believe they didn't get off the planet. I think the last we seen of them in the episode was them trying to get a radio to work to call for help, and we'll see what happens in the next episode. But the way it's set up right now, the giant dinosaur robot Trypticon heading towards Autobot City, and it doesn't have its transformation cog for Autobot City to transform into Metroplex. is going to be the key factor in that episode. But it is the Transformers, and the vast majority of the time, you know, good does win out over evil. So I don't think I've got too much to worry about. Right, that's going to do it, guys. Whatever you're doing, stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.